me make sure my volume's turned up. There we go. Can you hear me? I see, I think it's Cindy. It's kind of faded on here. Hello, hello. We're going to take a minute here just to let everybody get signed on. Let me see if I have comments. Yep, it was Cindy. Hello. Okay, we have a lot going on today, and I'm still working on these nightstands, but you know we're getting really close to having them finished, and I'm really pleased with how they have turned out. So before I put the camera down, I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Deborah with Deborah Bucher Designs, and I am a retailer for Dixie Belle chalk paint, and I'm a retailer for Wise Owl and Redesigned by Prima and Roycycle Decoupage tissues and Would You Bend and Posh Pigments. I got it all, and I'm coming to you live from my booth at Ground Floor Artist in Surprise, Arizona. So, hi Mary, good to see you. Hi Evangeline. I'm glad you guys are logging on. We're almost finished with these nightstands. So, let's get going. I'm gonna move you out of the way over here. Move the iPad, not you. Okay, so later on, I'll put the camera down so that you guys can see the feet on here, but for right now, I'm just gonna move it down so you can see the top of this nightstand. Okay, that looks like that's pretty good. Okay, so one of my favorite things, and there are so many favorite things, but one of my favorite things is using the No Pain gel stain. And it's a perfect name for it because it really is no pain. And it comes in beautiful colors. The two that I use the most are the walnut or the espresso. And sometimes I use them in conjunction with each other, but there's a white one, and there's a cherry wood, and there's a gray, a weathered gray, and several other colors that I'm just going blank on at the moment. The other thing that I like to use is this applicator instead of using a brush. Now for the legs at the bottom, when you see them later, you'll see I did use a chip brush on them, and they look great. It's a chip brush that I have washed many times, and so it wasn't shedding bristles. And anytime you're using the No Pain gel stain, you need to stir it up really well. Incorporate all of those oils, and this does have VOCs, so you need to be in a well ventilated area. It's one of the few products of Dixie Belle that does have VOCs, but it's just got the most beautiful finish on it. And then, like I said, I use these applicator pads, and the reason why I love these is that they don't shed anything, and you get a really smooth, clean finish with them. And if you're using them for other things other than, I got some stuff on here. If you're using these for other than staining, you can actually just throw them in the washer and wash them. Like if you use this for a top coat, a water-based top coat, you could just throw it in the washer when you were done and wash them. So let me get all of this over here to the other side. and I'll show you how I do this. So what I like to do is I like to butter up. I just use my stir stick and I just like butter it up like you're doing toast. And I just get a nice smooth application of it there. And then I start on one end like this. I don't want to go off my edge there. And so if you tuned in last week, you would have seen how I added this wood grain finish to this. And adding this walnut stain to the top of it just continues to bring that real wood finish to it. And I think this applicator pad does such a nice job. What do you guys think? Have you guys ever used the no paint gel stain? Give me some hearts or some thumbs up if you've used it before, or if you're liking how this looks. Hi, Lynn. Okay, so I start a little bit up front just to offload and then go back and smooth out where you've started. The nice thing is it does have a long open time on it, so you can work with this. And doing it like this, I don't know if the camera shows, it kind of does, you end up getting a varied wood look to it. And you can do one coat or two coats. I believe that I need to let this have 2 coats. Just trying to smooth out those beginning lines. And this needs 72 hours to dry. And then you can put a second coat on. You can top coat it with any of the top coats. And if you have been one of those people begging for gator hide, since I'm now a retailer for Wise Owl varnish comes in Wise Owl varnish comes in matte and satin, and it is as tough as gator hide. And thankfully, Wise Owl was able to stock up on the ingredients for the varnish. And so they are not in danger of running out of their supplies to manufacture it, which is awesome. So if you're one of those people who have been patiently waiting for gator hide to get on the market, you don't have to wait anymore, because the Wise Owl products play really well with the Dixie Belle products. A little bit more on here. We're just about done. I'm just making sure that where I start over here doesn't have a start mark on it. Normally I don't go over it this many times, but for some reason that edge is causing a small issue. Okay, and then I'm going to just take this pad and go back over this edge with it. And then the same thing on this end. And then I'm going to come around to the front. Okay. So I'm going to bring the camera back so that you can see the whole thing. And it looks like there's a glare on here, so it makes it look like it's, is it the camera, or as you look at the front of the nightstand, the far right corner needs more work? Which far right corner? Are you saying over here? Lisa, is it over here, this corner that you're saying? Okay, I'm going to back the camera up so you can see the whole thing. And I do think it's a glare. So there are light and dark spots on here. I'll try one more time, but I'm not too concerned about it, because like I said, I will be putting a second coat on, and wood naturally has variations in the color. Okay, I'm gonna let that be good. Hi, Melissa. It always just makes me happy when I see you sign on. Okay, so I'm running out of places to actually set stuff. Let me rearrange a few things here. So I'm going to move that out of the way, and I'm going to move the other one in camera. So we're going to do the same thing. Okay, so I want to talk to you before we get started on this one. Let me make sure you guys are actually in camera here. Okay, so I don't think you can see the feet. Maybe you can. Let me see. Yeah, you can sort of see the feet down here. And I painted them earlier today on both of them with the no paint gel stain. And like I said, I just used the chip brush on them, and I think they came out just fine. And on her, I also did some waxing, and we're going to do waxing on the Cowboy, but can you see the shading that I did on here? I used the Best Dang Wax in brown, and I'm telling you, they call it that because it truly is the Best Dang Wax. It's water-based, so you can paint over it. If you do something you don't like, you can paint over it, whereas if you're using an oil-based one, you don't have that luxury. Oh, Lynn, thank you so much. That's such a kind thing to say. And then my favorite waxing brush are these French tip brushes, and they aren't expensive. They're only $10, but I have one for every color of wax, and I love using these brushes. And so using the brown wax, and I'll demonstrate it on the other one, but you know, you just tip a tiny bit in there, and then just shade around areas where handprints or dust or oils, just things that happen over time, and then that just all blends in. And since we were together last week on here, I also took a 220 sanding sponge, one of these sponges, and you can order them from my website. They're just $1.50, I think. I took those sanding sponges and sanded down all the rough spots. So now when you feel this, you saw when I put all of that burlap texture on there, but now when you rub your hand over it, this is nice and smooth, like you would expect a piece of furniture to be. And you know, you've got all of that texture going on. You can still see it even though it's been sanded down, and you can see the layers of paint that are on here. But then I've also darkened up areas so that, you know, the detail really shows up on that texture. And I did that all the way around on this piece, and I'm going to show you how to do it on that piece. But first, let's get this top done. So let me find a place to put all my stuff again. Don't need the wax for the moment. Okay. So just give it a little stir. I'm going to bring you guys in a little closer. Lisa, the wax really does bring the piece to life. It's just, and it's so easy and fun to do. And you don't have to wax all over the whole piece. You just look at it and think, okay, what do I want to bring forward? What do I want your eye to rest on? And you can see I'm using very little of this pad, and so even if you put it in a Ziploc bag, it's going to be hard and dry. So the good news is you can flip it over and use this side, and then you can flip it over and use this side and this side. So you get a lot of use out of these pads, and they do not have any lint or fuzz. And this has a special weave on it. Some of the weaves have like a loop on it, and you don't want to get those kind of pads. I do have these pads for sale on my website because I love them, and you don't want the kind that has the loop in it because that leaves a drag mark when you're applying your stain. And like I said, if you're just using paint on them, they are washable. But if you're using the stain, once you've used up your pad, you're done. I think this one went on a little more even than the other one, simply because I had to keep going over it to get this edge over here, but I finally figured out how to get that edge without having to go over it a bunch of times. Okay, and I'm going to get this edge. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, we're over on the other side. We're leaving now.
Okay, am I the last one here?
Jackie's here beside you.
Okay,
So maybe you two. I don't know.
thank you. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna bring up the camera. I'm really happy with that. What do you guys think? Is it more like the microfiber cloths? Could be. I don't think I would use a microfiber cloth because part of the structure of the pad is what makes it easy for you to smooth on a nice smooth coat here. Thanks, Melissa. Hi, Judy. Thanks for tuning in. So, I'm going to switch things around in here again because she's already been waxed. So let me just bring up the camera so you can see her full glory. And I'm going to flip her around. So you can see how that shading really looks really pretty over here on these sides. So let me move her out of the way and move him back over. Let's see. All right, we're going to start down here on this end. And it's awkward because I want to touch and set stuff up there, and I can't do either. Okay, so I think you guys have a good view. See what happens if I bring you in a little closer. Hi, Sue from New York. Thanks for joining us. Melissa, this is the walnut stain. I usually use walnut or the espresso, or sometimes a combination of the two. So like if I put this on one coat and I don't think it's going to be dark enough for whatever piece I'm putting it on, then after it's dried, and like I said, it takes 72 hours to dry thoroughly, and that depends on what location you live at, what your climate's like. If you're in a real humid place, it could take longer. But you can see it's called No Pain Gel Stain, and it is so easy to use, and you get such a spectacular result from it. So I really love using it. Okay, so I'm going to put the iPad down, and I want to show you that using this brush, I literally just put the tip in. You can hardly see anything, but it's better just to put the tip in and get some on it than to get too much. And I also normally I use wet wipes, and I thought I had some here at the booth, and then it turns out I didn't. So I have a rag that is damp. It's not wet, it's just damp. So if you get it into spaces or areas that you don't want it, you can just wipe it back. So I want to get you guys as close as I can. So less is better, because you can always go and put more on. And think about areas that you would be touching, and you have oils on your hands. And so, you know, like opening up the drawer, your thumb over here on the edge. And then just think about lighting and how things shadow. And you don't want it to look like you put wax on it. You just want it to look like it's old and aged naturally. And so I'm going to get up here underneath here. And this process, even on this big piece, goes pretty fast. And what I forgot to mention was after last week's live, when we put the wood grain on the top, when that was over, I hung out and sanded these smooth, then took a sponge with warm water and my bucket and went back and wiped everything down, because sanding this created a lot of paint dust on it, and I wanted all of that burlap to be visible and not covered up with dust. So I wiped it all down, and then I put a top coat, a satin top coat on it. And the reason for that is to protect that finish But also, when you're using wax, if you wax directly on top of your paint, and there's no reason you can't do it, but you have to realize that if you're doing it directly on top of that paint, it's going to grab. And if that's the look you're going for, that's fine. But if you want to have a little bit more control over what's going on with your wax, then putting a barrier between your paint and your wax, like a top coat. It can be any top coat. It can be the flat, it can be the satin, it can be any top coat. And another cool thing is, just with the residue that's left on the brush, I can rub it on the side here, and that texture just on the surface, like dry brushing, pulls up the texture and just the slightest bit of that wax in there. And people are not going to notice that that's a detail because it's so subtle. You don't want them to notice it. But it's one of those things that just brings another dimension, another layer, another piece of reality. You know, this looks like an old piece of furniture. It's not supposed to look like it's a modern piece of furniture. And this was actually, this set of nightstands was in my daughter's guest room for years and years and years. And then I did another set of nightstands, and she loved those nightstands, so she bought those nightstands from me and gave me these. What a deal. Can you see what a difference this is making? I'm going to leave you up close, and then there's a ridge line that goes across here. And I just want to bring that ridge line out a little bit, just to emphasize it a little bit. In the past, I always just used chip brushes for waxing. I mean, I've done that for a long time. And then one day I thought, well, let me just see how these, okay, there's a little indentation, you know, it goes down and out. And I just want to subtly bring that out. Just like that. So let me move the camera back. I'm going to see if I can lower this tripod. This is not one of my good tripods. This is a cheapie, and it is a little tricky. Okay. I'm going to get down here on the floor. Okay, I think we're in a good spot. So of course you're going to have dust and dirt accumulate and wax from years of waxing and polishing. So it's going to be right on that ridge line, And I can see in the camera that looks pretty dark. And so all you want to do is just take this wonderful brush and just brush it out. And if you still feel like you have too much, then you can just take your damp cloth and go back and wipe it back. So, same thing here. It's naturally got a shadow there just from the light, and there's a ledge here that we did. And so we just want to go in and highlight that a little bit. And then while I have some wax on the brush, not a lot, I just want to go over here and highlight, like dry brushing. You aren't getting into the grain of it, you're just laying color on top of that texture. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go down here and finish the bottom. Okay, so we did this ridge here, but there's another slight ridge right there. And just remember, if you put the wax somewhere and you don't like it, you can just take your cloth and wipe it completely away. And I always think that edges and shadows, because that's where you get, you know, that's where you're rubbing against. Like if you walk by something and you kind of rub into it. And I'm being really careful with this edge because this gel stain down here on the feet, like right here and right here, they're still wet. But I love how, you know, you get to the stage, you work and work and work on a piece, and then you get to this stage of it, and it just starts to come to life. And just putting that gel stain on the feet pulls the whole thing together, the top and the bottom, makes it cohesive. And for those of you that don't know, I live in Arizona, and we're still very much a southwestern state. We still have rodeos, we have lots of reservation, you know, a lot of horse communities, mountains. And so I think that this piece, it's going to be for sale, but I think this piece will sell pretty quickly because it's representative of the area that we live in, the history that we live in. We still have lots of cowboys and cowgirls. trying to get the whole bottom. Yep, I got it. Okay. It's been so long. There were 2 little drops down here of the no pain gel stain, and I just took my rag and smeared them into that, and now you won't even know because there's so much going on this piece. But I'm going to take this ridge right here first. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if you guys saw, like 6 or 8 months ago, I did a dresser, an old-fashioned dresser with sunflowers on it, and I did this burlap texture in more traditional burlap colors. This has dried sage as a base color on it, because there's so much of that dried sage on this paper. But I just have to say, I love using this texture, and I will use it on future pieces because it just brings a remake from remake to a piece of art. And it's easy to do. There's lots of steps to it, but it's easy to do. And the next time you guys see this piece, it will be in photographs and staged because they're almost done. I have a few touch-ups here and there that need to happen, and I'm going to need to put a second coat of the stain on the top and then let it dry really well. But after the touch-ups and getting another coat on, we're going to call this guy done. They'll be on to a new project. And you know, you guys, I know you've been seeing this for 3 or 4 weeks now, but I really appreciate you just tuning in, following along. I hope it's been of benefit to you. It's up on YouTube also. So if you're a YouTuber, I would really love it if you would go to my YouTube page and subscribe. I'm working really hard to build that page up. I would really like to see it get monetized. So I need lots of viewers and lots of subscribers to get there. And that's Deborah Bucher Designs on YouTube. And just remember, there's no wrong way or right way to do this. It's whatever way you want to do it. There's no right place or wrong place. It's just wherever you feel like you want to bring some dimension and attention to. We've got this little ridge in here, so I want to shadow that in a little bit, but I don't want it to be obvious. So there's very little wax on my brush, and so I'm just laying it on the side and actually just catching it on some of those ridges. This piece looks like it's been hanging around for a long time. I'm just taking the edge of the brush and getting it on the actual sharp corner on here. This is a good way to blend in your paper. Remember, a long time ago when we started this, we took a wet brush and wet the edge on that paper. And now we're just blending it all in. We've got dried sage on here. We've got Palmetto. We've got rusty nail and chocolate brown on the body of this piece. Hi Jerry, I didn't see you sign in. Hi Robin, thank you. They're almost done. I've been working on these two for such a long time that I can't even remember what the hardware looks like that I took off. So I don't know if I'm using the same hardware or if I gotta go find hardware. And remember, if you feel like you've gotten a spot too dark, which I'm thinking this looks a little dark, just take your damp cloth here and just wipe it back. He's a handsome dude, isn't he? If I was a little younger, I'd date him. Judy, you think he's pretty handsome too, huh? Hi reminds me of some of those cowboys on Yellowstone and 1883. Okay, so there's a ridge that goes all along here, and I'm going to just lightly go over that ridge. This decoupage tissue on both of these pieces is from Roy Cycle. I'm a retailer for her, and just one of her biggest fans. I think just on this ridge right here, I'm just really lightly going to go in there. Yep, it needed that. I may need to go back on the other one because I don't think I did that spot on the other one. I know you're off camera, but I'm just getting a couple of spots down here on the bottom, and I'm going to turn it around. We did this side. Did we do the other side? Nope, we got this side, and then we are done. Does anybody have any questions about how to use the wax, why we're using the wax? This is a French tip brush, and I have these on my website. I don't have a lot, but I can always order more. They're good for dry brushing. They're good for applying wax like this. They're really cool brushes. And if you tuned in late, I like to put a coat of satin top coat on before I do waxing. You don't have to, but if you don't, the wax is going to grab onto the chalk paint, and you won't have as much control over how much you're putting on, how much you're taking off. Where if you put a top coat on, you guys hear them drilling? I don't know who's doing that or why. again, you want to think about where on an old piece of furniture that you see wax buildup or dust, or where, you know, just people walking by and touching and their clothes rubbing on it, where those spots are, and just think about those areas are where you want to highlight. You don't want to make it obvious, it's just really subtle shading. We have all of these colors peeking through. You can see the palmetto underneath, you can see the brown, the rusty nail. Thanks, Judy. Hi, Melissa. So does anybody have any questions about this? We're almost done here. If you're new to me, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on TikTok. I never thought I would say that. I actually had my first video go viral. When I looked at it this morning, I had 16,000 viewers on it. That just cracks me up. I said I was never going to do TikTok because it's Chinese owned, but in social media, TikTok is #1, Facebook is #2, Instagram is #3 for viewership, and Facebook is at the bottom, which, you know, honestly doesn't make me sad because I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but since I come to you guys live on Facebook, I don't want it to go away. So anyway, learning that TikTok was #1 and that I was only hurting myself by not getting out there on TikTok and building that audience. So I did. But I have to admit, there are some really fun videos out there on TikTok. And it is a game to see what my viewership is on there, and to have a TikTok go viral. I'm trying to get a few more to go viral. It's pretty exciting. And my 7-year-old granddaughter thinks I am really famous. Okay, so I'm going to turn both of these around. So I want them to be similar. They don't have to be exact because in a bedroom, they're going to be on opposite sides of a bed. But I do want them to be similar. So I want to look at both of them. What do you guys think? If you like it, give me some hearts. If you think this is something somebody else would enjoy seeing, I would love it if you would share it. You have no idea what that does to my algorithms on here when you guys share these posts. About a month ago, 3 of you shared, and Evangeline, thank you so much. What a nice thing to say. Thank you so much. About a month ago, you guys shared 3 of my videos, and that, when you do that, then Facebook goes, oh, well, this might be something other people are interested in, so then Facebook shares them. And so I got so many new followers off of you guys sharing those videos. I really, really appreciated it. That was awesome. Okay, remember I said I needed to go under here? But really, in person, you guys, it makes it look like this is really old, weathered paper. You know how paper gets that yellow, brown edge to it? That's what it looks like in person. All right, what do you guys think? I think we're about ready to wrap it up. So let me turn the camera down. Oh, I guess I don't have to. Hello. So if you guys have any questions, just send me a message, or just make a post on here with what your question is, and then other people might have the same question. And thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Hi, Tanya. You guys are the best, and I'm here every Tuesday at 4 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, and everything that you've seen here is available on my website, and that's www.deborahbucherdesigns.com. So thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate you being here. Have a great evening.